Look at this map. Back in the 19th century, there was this little fishing town in China, Tsingtao. Nothing special. A sleepy village by the Kiaochu Bay. But then along came this man, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and he had big plans for this tiny place. By that time, the European powers had already carved up the world pretty thoroughly. Britain had its Hong Kong, France its colonies, even tiny Belgium had its slice of the pie. And Germany? Germany showed up a bit too late to the colonial race. But Wilhelm II was determined to claim his own place in the sun. Then something happened that gave him the perfect excuse. 2 German missionaries were murdered in China. What followed turned the sleepy fishing village into a German Hong Kong and wrote a fascinating yet dark chapter in German history. Let's take a step back. What was going on in the late 1800s in China? Picture a vast empire that had existed for thousands of years. The Chinese called the land the Middle Kingdom, and not without a reason. For centuries, they were ahead of everyone else. But then came the Opium War, and everything changed. The Europeans arrived with steamships and modern weapons. Britain forced China to open its ports for trade, especially for opium. You heard that right. The British were selling massive amounts of drugs to the Chinese. But it got worse. Every European power now wanted a piece of the Chinese pie. China was practically torn apart, with foreign powers staking claims everywhere. Wilhelm II was, let's say, a man with grandiose ambitions. He dreamt of a German world empire. In his own words, Germany's future lies on the water. Doesn't sound so dramatic at first, but just wait. The man had a plan, and it was pretty elaborate. Take a look at this map. Here's Kiaochu Bay, perfectly situated between Beijing and Shanghai. A natural deep-water harbor, sheltered from typhoons. For a Kaiser dreaming of a powerful navy, it was like hitting the jackpot. But how do you claim such a harbor? You can't just walk in and say, hey, this is ours now. Or maybe you can. That's exactly what happened when, on November 1st, 1897, 2 German missionaries were murdered by members of a Chinese sect. The 2 men, Richard Händle and Franz Nies, were part of the Steyler Mission, preaching Christianity in Shandong province. Nothing unusual for the time. But the murder? Wilhelm II could hardly contain his excitement. He wrote in a telegram, "At last the Chinese have provided us with the long-awaited reason and incident. Thousands of German Christians will breathe a sigh of relief when they know the German Emperor's ships are nearby." Wait a second. At last? Long-awaited? Does that also sound to you like someone who'd been waiting for an excuse? 2 weeks later, German warships landed off the Chinese coast. On board were 700 heavily armed soldiers under the command of Rear Admiral Otto von Diederich. The Chinese were caught completely off guard. The story is almost absurd. They surrendered without a single shot being fired. But Wilhelm II wasn't done. He sent his own brother, Prince Heinrich, with another fleet. His message: should anyone attempt to offend or harm us in our just cause, then strike with an armored fist. What followed changed the region forever. China was forced to sign a 99-year lease agreement. 99 years. It's like someone breaking into your house and forcing you to sign a rental agreement. But it didn't stop there. Germany invested over 200 million marks into its new protectorate, an astronomical sum for the time. And so the transformation began. The sleepy fishing village turned into a modern German city. Paved streets, streetlights, sewers, everything up to German standards. The Germans built schools, a hospital, and even a swimming pool. And of course, how could they not, a brewery. The Tsingtao brewery, by the way, is quite the story. Picture this. In the middle of China, where most people drank tea, German settlers built a brewery. Today, Tsingtao is one of Asia's most famous beers. But there was also a dark side. The German colonial rulers enforced strict racial laws. Chinese people couldn't live in the German districts. They had to carry special passes, and their working conditions often inhumane. A German official at the time wrote, "The Chinese must know their place." Statements like that are hard to stomach today, but they show how the colonial rulers thought. They saw themselves as the bringers of culture, a notion that seems absurd now. Tensions grew, not just in Tsingtao, but across China. By 1899, the Boxer Rebellion began. Chinese nationalists had had enough of foreign humiliation. They attacked mission stations, killed foreigners and Chinese Christians. Wilhelm II responded with his infamous Han speech. He called for a brutal crackdown. What followed was an international crisis. The most powerful industrial nations, including Germany, Britain, France, Russia and Japan, joined forces. The united colonial armies crushed the rebellion. They looted the imperial palace in Beijing. Many of the stolen artifacts are still in European museums today. The hope for a free China was brutally extinguished. A grim story. Back in Tsingtao, life went on. The city grew. German architects designed buildings, blending European and Chinese styles. Villas, parks, even a beachfront boulevard were built. The Germans called Tsingtao the Pearl of the Orient. The port became one of the most modern in Asia. German engineers built a railway into the interior. Tsingtao became a key trading hub in northern China. Coal, silk, straw goods, everything passed through the port. But then came World War I. The very war Germany had helped ignite marked the end of their colonial dreams. Japan, then an ally of Britain, besieged Tsingtao. The German garrison held out for 3 months, but that was it. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of all its colonies. Tsingtao was handed over to Japan, much to the dismay of the Chinese. Massive protests followed. The May 4th movement of 1919 became a turning point in Chinese history, indirectly paving the way for the rise of communism. These events were part of a longer period of humiliation and foreign interference in China, and to this day remembered as the century of humiliation. And here's the crazy part. Many of the German buildings are still standing. The Tsingtao brewery still produces beer. The old train station, the post office, the beachfront villas, they are still there. It's like a German city in China. Today, Tsingtao is a metropolis with millions of residents. Its port is one of the largest in the world. It's wide when you think about it. A tiny fishing village, 2 murdered missionaries, a power-hungry Kaiser, and in the end, it became one of China's most important cities. History is strange sometimes, isn't it? What can we learn from this story? Maybe that power is fleeting, or that cultural exchange, even under grim circumstances, leaves lasting marks. The Tsingtao brewery is the best example of that. It's important to remember this history, not just the major events, but also the smaller stories. The Chinese workers who built the city, the German settlers who started new lives, the people who suffered under colonial rule. German-Chinese relations have transformed dramatically since then. Today, Germany is China's most important trading partner in Europe. Colonizers have become business partners. Oppression has turned into collaboration. What do you think about this nearly forgotten chapter of German history? Have you ever been to Tsingtao or tried the famous beer? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. By the way, you will find links to more about Tsingtao history and Germany's colonial era in the video description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.